Welcome to Direct Approach, a bi-weekly podcast hosted by Wayne Moorhead, filled with timely insights, fresh perspectives, and actionable takeaways from your direct selling executive peers to help fuel the growth and evolution of your business. In today's data-saturated world, the ability to cut through the noise and capture attention is more critical than ever, especially in direct selling. With humans now exposed to more information in a week than people in Shakespeare's era encountered in a lifetime, the challenge to convey compelling value is real. In this episode, we explore how top leaders from the fall DSU event in Dallas are addressing this issue with strategies that focus on leveraging AI, refining compensation plans, fostering genuine relationships, embracing change, and so much more. But before we begin, we'd like to thank this episode's sponsor, Exego. Today, running a direct selling company can feel overwhelming, like juggling 1,000 things at once. What if there was a tool that could scale to handle the heavy lifting and help reduce operational costs at the same time? Exego is that tool. The Exego platform is a suite of software that automates and speeds up commissions, streamlines operations, improves reporting, and offers the flexibility companies crave. With Exego, clunky, rigid, in-house software becomes a modern and efficient platform, allowing businesses to focus on what matters most: growth and making world-changing products. Join the hundreds of other MLM companies who trust Exego to improve their tech stack and boost their bottom line. Visit exego.com to learn more. Now, let's welcome your host, Wayne Moorhead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorhead, and today we're going to do something a little bit different. As you know, the recent DSU event in Dallas was incredible, truly the most impactful direct selling event that I've ever attended. And the response to the content, the information, and the insights that were shared by the more than 50 presenters has been incredible as well. We've had a lot of people reach out asking for this information and the great content so that they can internalize it again and share it with their teams to make sure that their teams and their companies understand the powerful dynamics that are shaping today's direct selling landscape. So you asked and we listened, and today we're going to experience some of those key highlights, insights, and takeaways from this event, and make sure that you don't miss out on the spring DSU in Dallas. So go ahead and register today for you and your teams. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy these insights.
We would always think about crafting our plans on the sphere of influence. And we had a very big idea about how large someone's sphere of influence was. So we would pay 3, 4, 5, 6, not levels, but generations deep, right? Many of us still do. Right? And the belief in that is that you're paying the person at the top because their influence is felt throughout their entire organization, because they have team meetings and team pages and team leadership, and they have a team name, and they buy everybody t-shirts at conference and convention, and they're all wearing the things and the glasses, and they're like this big influence. And I think that used to be really, really, really true. And what our research is showing and what we're seeing in practice is that that is waning. And that the ability for someone to actually have influence that affects your revenue, your sponsoring, your leadership development deep down in their organizations is less than even we thought it was. And in practice, it's getting less and less and less and less. Now, I know that that is a hard thing to hear. Right? I know I'm messing with sort of the fundamental underpinning of our channel. And I'm not suggesting radical shifts. I'm not suggesting the demise of multi-generational plans by any stretch, or heaven's sake, infinity bonuses. And I'm not suggesting that. I'm simply suggesting if you find yourself, this is the actionable insight, if you find yourself looking at your plan and recognizing that you might be paying people disproportionate to the active contribution that you think they're having to your revenue and your sponsoring, that you might take a look at the span of control, which is a lot closer. How are you enriching the multi-level elements of your plan, the first level, second level, third level, where their actions have a direct correlation to the revenue that you see, the sales that you have? And how are you balancing that versus the sphere of influence, which is that more indirect? And I would suggest to you that the plans that are having to make shifts have let that change go too long. Okay, my end, I'll spoiler alert the end. The end is going to be, my recommendation is that everybody do some kind of compensation plan change this year. Just to do one, just to get our fields used to this idea that compensation plans can and will change, and it is not the end of the universe.
AI is getting cheaper the more advanced that it gets. Now think about this. In what other industry does something get 10 times more powerful at the same time as getting 50% cheaper? Because that's the current trend we're on with AI technologies. The newer, more powerful models are generally much cheaper than their predecessors. If it wasn't clear already, this is the time to go. If you're not experimenting with AI and implementing it in some way, whether it's even a small way, this today is your signal to get started. I've shown you some examples of how you can use generative AI, but there's thousands of other possibilities. So here's just some quick highlights. I want to start with marketing. Now, as you've seen today, there are many marketing use cases, including imagery, video, digital avatars, translation. In fact, generative AI is completely changing marketing, and I've built a whole company around that. And upskilling your teams should now be your top priority if you're not already doing that. Next is coaching. This one really excites me as it can make a really, really serious impact on the field. We're at the dawn of AI coaches. Think of some of the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in the field. Imagine you wrote a list. I bet somewhere in your top 5 is onboarding, training, and retaining new recruits. They come in, they go into witness protection, and they head straight back out the door. This happens. But this is an area where AI can change things up. Imagine an AI coach, a super supported first 7 days or 30 days for your prospect, coaching them to the first fast start bonus, building their list with them, giving them a chance to practice prospecting and appointments with a virtual coach. This is great for introverts that don't want to go to a training or on a Zoom call. And we all know that introverts can become some of the best and most successful people in our industry. Imagine an AI coach that can sit on a Zoom call, providing real-time feedback in the private chat, analyzing tone and style, assessing and grabbing sales opportunities that the field might be missing in real time, and monitoring dialogue for compliance. Or imagine having an AI coach in an app on their phone, telling them what activity to focus on today, curating a personalized DMO, daily method of operation, creating personalized content in their tone of voice, and putting some of their prospecting on autopilot. I'll just pause there. Now, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of AI prospecting in and outside of direct selling. It's horrible. Please don't let your field do it. Now, we're working on this in my company, and we're going to solve this. But a bit like how voice first was the next big thing 5 or 6 years ago. Remember Gary Vaynerchuk did a whole conference on voice first. But yet, we're still shouting at Siri and Alexa because they're good, but they're not great. We want to make sure this is great. And finally, there's efficiency. Now, I've focused a lot on the tools for the field, but there are huge gains to be had in your internal operations, using AI to do heavy lifting. It is so alarming to me when I'm going into companies and I'm helping them audit for AI, how many highly skilled, highly paid people in your organizations are still doing the most basic, repetitive, low-skilled tasks every single day. AI can eradicate that.
We empower our affiliates to promote free trainings, to promote lead magnets that might be guides or quizzes. But the most effective way that we generate highly qualified leads and conversions into the faster way to fat loss is with what I call a micro commitment. Once per quarter, we give our prospects the opportunity to try before they buy. And we share ways for our affiliates to promote these micro commitment programs all over the internet to solicit for highly qualified leads and ultimately participants in these mini programs. I'll give you a couple of examples. Recently, we did a 1999 5-day Melt Your Middle campaign. If you were a participant in the Melt Your Middle campaign, you received 5 days of effective workouts, a 5-day meal plan, bonus trainings, and a community group for accountability and support. As the participants went through this particular 5-day Melt Your Middle campaign, my team at headquarters did the hard work of nurturing and converting those participants into our $249 6-week program. Within 7 days of this micro-commitment campaign, we converted 23% of those participants into the $249 program. Here are a few examples of what we provide to our affiliates as we promote micro-commitment campaigns together. We provide a campaign sales page. This is a landing page with effective marketing copy. It has the picture of the affiliate right there on the landing page. We give them social media content ideas via a social media content calendar, visual assets so that we have consistency across platforms. We give them sales scripts, promotional items, in addition to outreach copy. A couple more examples of micro commitments. Just last week, we did a 5-day belly blast campaign. Who doesn't want to burn a little bit of fat around their belly? Within 7 days of this particular campaign, we had a 19% conversion. Now, we've done quite a bit of testing, and what we found is our conversion was lower because in this particular campaign, we did not give the participants the opportunity to receive a free container of our wellness product, our BCAA, and instead we tried a bonus digital bundle, which wasn't quite as enticing. A micro-commitment funnel is something that each and every one of you should consider for your company. Think through ways that you can do a micro-commitment with your entire army of distributors, providing their prospects the opportunity to invest only $20 for an awesome 5-day experience with your brand.
I just want to share a little bit about our key survival lessons. Compensation plan flexibility, we've spoken about this since day one. We told distributors we will be changing the compensation plan as needed, and we have. And it's not really been an issue. One thing we've done is every time we've done a change, we always present it as a promotion or as a temporary thing. And then if it doesn't work, the promotion expires, the temporary thing expires. If it works, we extend it. It stays a promotion for at least a year. And then we make it permanent. So again, it doesn't have to be like this big thing, right? Not being afraid to do the right thing. We once had somebody reach the highest rank in about 6 months, and it was very exciting. And then she started coaching on the side, which is fine. You can do coaching. But then she started posting some videos saying she was making $70,000 a week, and that she could show you how to make $70,000 a week. So we immediately called her, you can't have that video. And she said, no, but I'm gonna do that through my coaching. I'm like, it doesn't matter. People associate you with our brand. They're not gonna know what you're talking about. You have to take the video down or we're gonna kick you out. And all the other leaders complained, their upline complained, everybody complained. In about 4 or 5 days, she did not take it out. We sent legal letters, we did what we did, and we kicked her out. And it's not the only time. Merchant accounts. Did you know that's the #1 reason why growing companies fail? So again, maybe if you're a 20, 30-year-old company, it doesn't apply to you. But for the new companies, when I interviewed all those CEOs when we were starting, that was the #1 reason why companies that were selling failed. Because in this industry, when your sales explode, your merchant account will freeze you, even if they don't want to. You will fall outside of their growth parameters. So you always need to have at least 4 different ones. And it happened to us, and if we hadn't had 4, that's a magic number. Even with 3, we would have failed. Because one freezes you, then you go to the other one. But if you're still in momentum, the other one will freeze you too a few months later, and then you have to go to the other one. Import registries. As you go into these new countries, some of these countries, they may decide something in your publicity that's okay in the US is not okay in the country. So they may put a publicity alert. Or maybe it's a competitor. When we went to Mexico, because we started in the US, the first year we went to Mexico, everything was going great, and about 6 months into selling in Mexico, we had a publicity alert from Cofepris. It's like the FDA here. And what happened is that we were using the US website in Mexico. And in US, you're allowed to make a lot of weight loss claims that you're not allowed to make in Mexico. And so basically, we had to stop selling for 2 weeks. And it's these things could happen. We were able to resolve it. But one of the things that they can do is they can block your ability to import product into the country. So you need to have a separate import registry, registered company with different shareholders, different everything, just a different route to continue to import your product.
The first thing that we did at Neolife is we needed to define the priority. We wanted to strip down to what is the one priority that matters to Neolife more than anything else when it comes to sparking growth in North America. And so we did a little exercise internally and with our field, and we started with, we all know we want to grow sales, but we know that sales and volume don't just create itself. So we boiled down one step further and said, well, we know that within our company, sales are generated through orders. And if we want more sales and volume within our company, we need more orders coming in every single day and every single month. We also drilled down further and said, people generate orders. So then we said, okay, how do we get more people? And we know that comes through sponsoring. We need more people coming in to our company every single month than the prior year. And so we drilled down one step further and said, okay, well, if sponsoring is our focus and that's what's gonna lead to more people, more orders, and greater volume, how do we drive sponsoring? And so then we focused on what we like to call prospecting activities. And we got the field very focused on a few critical prospecting activities that we know lead to success for them and their businesses. And Brett mentioned it yesterday. We focused in on 3 major prospecting activities as our priority in the company. First is conversations. Everything became at Neolife about how many conversations are we having each day, each week, each month in the field. Second, what we learned is most of the time, our prospects become our greatest customers and our greatest distributors when they've seen more of what the company has to offer than just a conversation with one of our distributors. So we said, hey, we need to have focus on inviting prospects to see more of what our company has to offer through using a tool, through getting to an event, through a webinar, whatever it is. But if we can show them more of our culture, if we can show them more of what we have to offer, the more they look at us, the more they're gonna like what they're a part of. So we need to be having conversations, and we need to be inviting those people to see more of what our company is all about. People need multiple layers of exposure, multiple layers of credibility. And then we dialed up our focus on follow-up. We know that the majority of our field leaders and distributors were losing in the sponsoring battle, not because they weren't having the conversations, it was because they were not having the commitment and discipline to follow up 2, 3, 4, 5 times with those prospects that they had. So then we zeroed every bit of our field communication around these 3 action items for our field.
One of the reasons why employee ownership is becoming more popular in the UK is there's no capital gains tax to pay if you sell into a trust in the UK. So that was an attractive option for them, but mostly they wanted to preserve the culture of the business. They wanted to keep that flame going. It was very, very important to them that they could keep the legacy of their work in the business and the culture by going into employee ownership, because they thought that was the best route through. And so they did. And so the business bought itself over a number of years. Final transaction in 2014. I became the CEO in 2015, and my job was absolutely to get that loan paid off as quickly as we possibly could so that we could become completely independent and completely self-sufficient. And we did it in a couple of years. And we declared in our business Financial Freedom Day. We got everybody together. We gave everybody what would be $3,000. And we said, right, this is our business now. This is our company. There's no one else to blame. There's no one else that's taken any responsibility. We must take accountability and responsibility for the actions that we do as we go forward. We stand and fall here ourselves. We're not, there's no shareholders, there's no banks, there's no loans, there's none of that. It's all done. So Financial Freedom Day was a big deal for us. There's a trust. We've got 2 stakeholder employees who sit on that trust. So we've got a production manager and a regional sales manager who are trustees of a $60 million business. Their trust job is to make sure that the board is running the company in the interests of all of the employee stakeholders. It doesn't get involved in strategy, it doesn't get involved in operations. It just needs to make sure that the board, it holds the board to account for doing the things that it needs to do. There's a board of directors, I'm the CEO of that, and then we've got a leadership team and a management team, as you would have in any normal operations. I was very skeptical of employee ownership when it was first brought to me, spoken to me in 2010. I thought it was going to be a socialist workers' utopia freedom place. Everybody was going to sit around having to vote on everything. Everybody was going to get paid the same. It was going to be a disaster because we wouldn't be able to make any decisions. And that's not what it is. It's a proper business. It's just owned differently, and it thinks differently, and it tries to do things a little bit more differently. The big things that it does is it gives everybody in the company a voice. So we have everybody's in a voice group. There's a voice group council. The council then come speak to the board, and anybody can raise anything, and there's a mechanism for getting that to the executives to talk about. We share the wealth of the business. There's no shareholders. We are essentially the shareholders. So since we became 100% employee-owned in 2015, we've shared, or the business has shared $19 million with our employee stakeholders over that 10-year period. Because what else are we going to do with the money? We've been very successful over the years. It's getting it back into the pockets of everybody in the company, right from the shop floor, machines, warehouse people, forklift truck operators. Everybody gets a share of the wealth of the company.
There's hundreds of thousands of lessons that I've learned from this beautiful, beautiful industry. But here are the 3 that I really want to take away. The first one is this industry is the only industry in the world, not one of, should correct that, is the only industry in the world that allows us to be ourselves. We're all unique individuals in our own way. We all carry ourselves in a different perspective. I'm a little bit more outgoing, a little louder. Some of us are reserved and quieter. But this industry has really allowed me to be me. The second thing is, and I challenge our executives, because that's who we all are in this room, always take a chance on someone who is a right fit for your culture. 10 years ago, I don't think Jack Fallon knew the potential or the capability or what I could do for his company, but he saw a kid that had a vision, that was willing to work hard, and that was dedicated. In this artificial intelligence world, which by the way is the future and is now, we always look for just that skill set, or we're looking for just that perfect person to fit into that role because of their experience or because of what they've gone through. And yes, that is super important, but you cannot teach culture, morals, and ethics. You can teach how to be a great Excel interpreter. You can teach how to communicate with the field correctly. You can teach how to market your products, but you cannot teach culture. And we have to understand that, and we cannot pass that up because we need more Gen Z representation. I'm getting ahead of myself, and we'll talk about that in a few seconds. And the third thing is, and I know everyone can account for this, personal development is necessary for success. It's a necessity. I would not be able to be here and speak to all of you if I have not gone on a 10-year personal development journey. It doesn't look perfect and it didn't happen overnight, but personal development is necessary for success, and that is our cutting edge against any other industry. That truly is what we offer, and I know you've heard it many times before, and I know I sound like a broken record. but we are in the people business. We're in the people growing business. We have to get back to focusing on personal development and educating my generation on how important it is that we continue to grow every single day.
So what have been some of the most effective ways that you've, especially early days, attracted, grown, and built the field and field leaders?
This is going to blow everyone's mind. We're back to the basics. We're belly to belly. I think we made a conscious effort at the beginning that we're still in relationship business. So we go into cities, and it may not be what it was back in the day where it's hotel meeting to hotel meeting. We'll still do those occasionally, but it's connecting with people. We go into LA and New York or Hong Kong, and we sit in a hotel and we have one-on-ones and we bring people in and we connect with people. So the truth is sure, we can leverage technology, we can do all those things that are available to us nowadays, but what really boils down to it, we're back in the field. We're forcing that issue, we're creating relationships, and it's allowed us to be successful, and I don't think we'll change that strategy in the foreseeable future.
We pivoted away for this year from the annual conference and have been using our trips. We designed multi-trips for the year, and we make the bar so that they can attend the trip. They can earn it, they can get it for free, they can get levels of free, but we've made that a big uniting point. And then the rest of the time, it has been training events that the field has done that we've flown out to and participated in. So we've built relationships like that. We have a couple of very distinct lines of sponsorship that build in different ways. And so we kind of follow that path and meet them where they're at. And we're finding it's pretty successful, especially here in the US. And Canada's beginning to really grab that model too. So that's really how we've built the relationships with them, is just meet them where they're at, see what it is they want, and then let them build that way, and then connect on multiple trips per year.
That's great.
One of the things we decided that we wanted to do is we wanted to just make money off of the sale of our product, and that was it. And so we eliminated, annual fees or renewal fees and no enrollment fees or anything like that, knowing that it's, this economy, like he said, that the consumers are very sophisticated and so are the distributors. And if you put up hurdles for them, they're going to go somewhere else. And if you have confidence in your product and in your business plan, bring down as many hurdles as possible. And we know that sometimes those enrollment fees and renewal fees and all those ways that can be great for companies to make money are also hurdles. And the best thing you can do if you have a good product is to get people in the door. And so we just tried as a company to eliminate as many hurdles as possible so that people can just start trying our product.
If you missed any part of our recent events or just want to revisit some of the speakers and topics, replays are accessible in the DSU On Demand library. The library is an exclusive resource for DSN supporter companies, one of the many benefits designed to help keep you and your teams engaged, informed, and one step ahead. If you work at a supporter company, simply log in using your unique company code to access this event's content, plus over 350 presentations from previous educational events. If you are interested in becoming a DSN supporter, you can contact us at support@directsellingnews.com. We also invite you to join us for our first ever DSU LATAM event, January 8th through 9th. Plus, save the date for the Spring DSU event and Global Celebration happening March 25th through 27th at the Irving Convention Center in Irving, Texas. Registration is free. Visit dsnevents.com today for up-to-date details.
Today, human beings are exposed to, in a week's worth of data, to what a human being was exposed in a lifetime at Shakespeare times. In a week, we have that bombarded with us. It is unbelievable how much we have to take in, digest, and how we pick through it all. Why is that important? Because in 2020, we had 30 seconds to grab someone's attention. 30 seconds was the time it took someone to say, I'm done, I'm bored, I'm moving on. In 2024, it's down to 13 seconds. 13, that you have got to get your brand, your reputation, everything you want to across to somebody. Just before I flew here, we took 250 teenagers aged between 14 and 19 and gave them an app and asked them to stream and just stop when they found something interesting. Those of you that have kids and those of you that do it yourself, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5 seconds was the longest anybody gave it. So if we're going to get in that next generation that keeps our industry alive, we have to change how we do things. We have to move with the times, because like that, somebody makes a decision. Again, why is that relevant? Because I fundamentally believe the future of retail sits in this room. And the reason it's in this room, and the reason it's with all of us in our sector, is because nothing cuts through that noise more than somebody you trust and know handing you a product and saying, try this, it's really good. So we have to learn how to talk to the next generation. We have to learn how to explain to them that this is the way to do it. So at the UK DSA, we did a really deep down dive, and we had a look at who we are, what we do we deliver, and why do we have our members with us. We then took a position to say, we're going to be the industry body for direct-to-consumer retail. And we started to do that about 2 years ago, because I wanted to move well away from some of the criticism about our industry. We are just a channel to market. The minute Nike introduces direct-to-consumer, that's all we do. There's no dark cult behind it all. There's nothing sinister. It's just a way to earn money, no matter your age, your creed, your colour, your religion, whether you're educated or to what level. We empower people to earn money. And that is an amazing channel to market.
What is working? From a field plugged in, I know you've been in the middle of chaos, but also like, what's working in your mind in the community today?
I know that building relationships take time, but time is the currency of relationship. It's the time that we spend with people, right? And that's how you build trust. We, as a field leadership team, had really leaned into leadership as well. And we have been doubling down on relationships over the past few years. That was absolutely critical for the season that we're in today, because we all said, let's not only look for an opportunity, but an opportunity where we can stay in community. We don't want to splinter. We don't want to fraction the team as much as we can. We don't want to disturb the culture that we built. So building those relationships, that's been key. The other thing is getting back to simplicity and helping people to understand it's like what is simple is what actually duplicates, and systems. And from being in this perspective of now, we're going, okay, so essentially we're in a place where we're not starting over, we're starting with systems, with strategy, but it's going back to, that's what actually works. And we think that we have to come up with new things all the time in order to create new growth. But a lot of times it's what we actually have to get back to that helps to grow the organization.
I love that. I agree 100%. Tomas, anything to add on that? What's working, things you're doing more of, less of today to really drive that growth you're seeing?
I think it's still the same. Stick to the basic and the relationships. And when it comes to all the change that you heard of here today, that's inevitable. It's coming and it's here. It's not like next month, it's here. So we need to adopt that, but we can't let go of the core, which is the people. It's a people business. I know the AI is on the front march, but we don't have the robots yet to build a business, okay? So we have to engage with the people and do those basics. So I think that's understand the simplicity, and also understand this, that I'm not a big fan of carrots or a stick, because the truth is good enough. If we can stick to the business model, why people join, there's a reason why they join. And most of the people are people like you, employed people that make an active choice to start building something with the company on their part-time to have an extra income. So it's like they want choices, they want connection, they want competence. That's what they're looking for, not so much that extra bling bling. So go back to those basics.
I think revival is needed in our business, and I think if revival can be sparked again, we'll see growth all across the channel.
What's more important, culture or language? Because throughout my 31 years career in the industry, a lot of people, when they go to Mexico, they're like, oh, I need to learn Spanish. We need to learn Spanish. Or the owner or the CEO or the president or even the top leaders want to learn Spanish. And can you learn a language in a month or in 2 months or in weeks or even in a year? I've been studying English for 31 years and still don't speak good English, right? So you don't learn a language in a year or in a month. But can you learn a culture in hours or in a week? If you study, yeah. If you start learning and reading and watching videos and talking to people, you can learn a culture, within hours, weeks. And what is more important, the language or the culture? The culture, 100%. People make so many mistakes trying to be funny about the language, and they don't understand the culture, right? And so understanding the culture can help you do business better anywhere. And this not only applies to Mexico and Latin America, but also applies to Asia and any other countries internationally. When you understand the culture, you can speak a better language. These are some of the keys for expanding into Latin America. Number one, it has a growing middle class. So there's more disposable income for people to spend within our products and market. It has a rising internet access, and everybody has a cell phone in Latin America. They might not have a computer at home, but penetration for cell phones is huge. Cultural emphasis on relationship. The Latin culture is built with lots of basis in family, relationship, and that's one of the reasons why the industry has grown so much. I just spoke a little bit about cultural language. Less saturation within the Latin American markets. It has a young population. Younger population want to start their own business and they have a bigger entrepreneurial mind. Proximity is golden. We're here. I think it's good and bad. Most of the American companies always go to Mexico as their first market, and they screw it up. They make all of the mistakes, and they don't do it right. And they're like, oh, no, Mexico doesn't work. And it's not because of Mexico. It's because they didn't do their homework right. And so just because Mexico is right here across the border, it doesn't mean that you can just take the products with you, drive it in a car, or do things like that. You have to do the job right.
Here's a couple things that got me from going from someone that was complete novice to now, okay, this is fascinating, how do we apply this, is I had to make a couple perspective shifts, right? The first was the fact that there's this whole fear paralysis. The reality, I said this earlier, we're all already using it every day. How often? How often? Every day. You already are, right? Whether it's your Whoop or your Aura Ring or your maps in your car or you're asking Siri for something, right? And I know all of you guys raised your hands earlier for ChatGPT. So we know that, but not even this room of early adopters. The rest of the world is also using it every day, right? They just don't call it AI yet, right? It's still an evolving conversation. So it's already something. I had to get around like, this is just something else to add to my plate. Like I don't have time for this, to realizing that it was actually about efficiency, automation, and saving time. Fact check. How many of you have to-do lists you will never get to the bottom of? How many of you do not need another thing on your plate to learn, right? So you have to reshift your perspective to realize that this is about shortening that list, right? Not adding to that list, otherwise you're never gonna get to it on the list, right? So you gotta make that mental shift. This whole expert conversation, and I wanna be clear, like, there is no expert. Like the people that are the experts are like one step ahead of everybody else because it's evolving so fast. So if you're someone that's kind of like me and you fall into sometimes overwhelmed, or maybe you want to do it right, or that's, want to have that perfectionist kind of syndrome, this is not about being perfect. It's not even about being the expert. It's just about playing, right, and starting to progress. So in terms of use cases, since that moment, kind of fell down the rabbit hole, I've just been playing, experimenting, using. Here, I sat down, I'm like, what am I using AI for? Right, and here's all the things that came to my mind. No filter on that photo. But these are all things that I'm personally using AI for on a very consistent basis. How many of you guys have stuff on your list that just you honestly can say you haven't started because just the effort to begin is too much, right? If there's one thing that has helped me in just about every aspect of my professional and personal life on AI, it's just the ability to actually get moving in a direction almost effortlessly.
So there are stories where private equity has been successful. So just want to make sure we run that caveat out before we get started. So, gentlemen, thank you for accepting the invitation. All of you have different experiences at different companies over the last couple of decades. So I'll start with you, Brick.
I would say the interesting thing there was as people asked the questions, evaluated the business, was some people were asking specifically about field health. They saw the value of the business in the field versus others who are strictly product focused and took that approach. Outcomes, I would say founders in the first experience, Monavie, definitely public, leveraging the transaction to attract more eyes from the field standpoint and growth and where we're going internationally. Jamberry was a much more private, closed behind the scenes. The founders had the opportunity to do a fraction, 20, 30% on the table. And when they had that money and the excitement from that group, they thought, well, why not take more, right? Why not take 51%? And certainly private equity group is like, they want to take what they can. That gets
What? Did you just say private equity wants to take what they can?
Yeah.
There's your first note.
And when that happens, unfortunately spills out to the field. That's a tough thing to claw back, and that was the beginning of a quick downhill journey for the company, unfortunately.
I've actually had both positive and negative experience on this side of the when I was at Beachbody, we had private equity come in. They invested capital in the company. The founders stayed. There wasn't necessarily a payday at that time per se. There was a payday, but not like taking all the money off the table. And the partnership with private equity there was a collaborative process. They brought some discipline to the company that was helpful. I think when you think about private equity, I think it's important to understand that it's not just money. If you want just money, go to a bank. Private equity comes in because they think they have the expertise to be able to help you. And that's where the disconnect in our industry is that they believe they have the expertise. In reality, they group direct selling with consumer packaged goods in most cases, and they think that they're exactly the same. And so they can bring anyone from the packaged goods space or the retail space in, and they'll understand the channel. And it's the nuancing that makes it a difference.
If you wanted to kill that model, it almost looked intentional, the decisions Carlyle made. Abrupt change to compensation. We changed it 4 times, I think, over 8 years. Company kept going up, right? There's a way to do it. You don't have to be afraid. They went into Ulta permanently with the best products. So now there's competition in every strip mall in America for every rep that you have. And push the founder aside that the field loves so much they dress like this woman. They idolized her and took her out of the equation. So if you look at the 3 critical success factors that you want to kill, like no surprise, the company's going to decline in revenue. And then when you have this debt recapitalization, it becomes very dicey to meet those covenants and obligations. And ultimately, as we saw in May, June, didn't happen. They now know that we have a channel where compensation gets more expensive even as revenue stabilizes, that there are some changing consumer preferences that we need to address in terms of simplicity, value of the money for the product, how much risk there is to join our companies. And they're pretty savvy now. And they're going to be much more discerning when they look at making an investment in one of our businesses.
And I think the biggest piece, which I found to be disheartening, was the perception of how we see and value the people as far as what's important to them. And when I say people, I mean the field, because if the field operates efficiently and they get their needs checked, and the needs are not always monetary, we know that recognition is the most valued currency, and you all know that as good as I know. Their perception starts to shift very quickly as to the utility. This is Heidegger's philosophy. This is where his critique of the modern world, where people are as good as what they provide for us as a utility, and they start looking at our people as transactions. And when you move from looking at people as how can I help them grow to how can we make them more efficient, you start to see the deterioration, and that is the beginning of the end.
You got to be bold. You got to be bold, and you got to burn the ships and believe that you have the best opportunity, the best story, the best leadership, the best product, the best comp plan. And if you're worried about the competition, get better. Just be bold and get better, because this leadership that's on the front lines, they are your greatest asset. And when you build a relationship with them and they believe you, they see where you're going, it's being bold, it's authenticity, R is recognize them like crazy, and last, constantly build the belief. Constantly build the belief. If you don't remember anything I said, I will tell you this. People stay in companies because they feel like they have ownership. They feel like they're part of a movement. They feel like they're part of a culture. They see your authenticity. They know you have ups and downs. They feel valued. They feel loved. And really, we fight the battle within ourselves, not believing that we can be number one. When I think about why people stay on the battlefield for you and me, it's the way that we make them feel. It's the mission. They trust us. They believe us. They know that there's a collaboration here where we value their opinion, because we want them to have a seat at this table and feel valued and loved. Not a war amongst other egos in the company, but just at that beginning leadership level, feeling like if that number one girl does great, I get a piece of the pie. So they're all collaborating and working together, and they trust us. When you look at the data and you really see companies that are growing, their teams are performing, their retention is there, nobody's gonna quit. Their innovation happens because of ideas. The people in the field are listened to and heard and valued. They're never gonna leave you. It's a culture that you're building. And I wanna ask you guys, if you knew you could 10x your growth, if you knew you could 10x the revenue, you knew you could 10x the dream, the culture, every single bit of that, what is your pain point? What is the one thing that you absolutely hate? What is the one thing that you're so passionate about you would spend the rest of your life? If everybody quit your team and you walk down the street, you could tell it to 9 out of 10 people would buy that product from you. That's why we started Frequence. And I remember that day telling my husband, we're burning the ships, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my life on a mission, creating a culture where people feel safe, being the protector of their dream, a story that I really believed in. And you guys, I will tell you, our 5 diamonds that do $500,000 in volume, 100,000 in volume, I didn't know any of them a year ago, not one. You don't have to go poach people. You don't have to go tear another company down. You don't have to copy another company. We need to be lifting each other up.
For many of you right now, you're just not having enough conversations. You're not planting enough seeds. You're expecting growth to occur, and yet you haven't planted enough seeds. What I want to encourage you to do, as you think about this on the corporate side, there's a lot that goes into that. But what we have to do on the corporate side, we've got to be professional conversation sparkers, okay? The more you can spark conversations, the more you can help your distributors spark conversations, the more you're supporting what success looks like in your business. Does it solve everything? No, but it has to happen first. And so many of you right now are focused on so many other things, and I think you could step back for just a second and say, what are we doing to just start more conversations? I think about 80% of the issues that we have on the corporate side of direct selling is just because we don't have a respect for, or we don't plan for communication the right way. And I think communication in a direct selling company is really, really difficult because we got so many audiences who are wanting so many different things from us. And a lot of times we just spray the same message out to all of them, but it doesn't really resonate because they don't all want the same things. But we've talked a lot about the changes that have to take place. Compensation plans, websites, back office, whatever it is, acquisitions, whatever. And a lot of times we drive like people in Texas here where I'm from. where there's no turn signal soon enough and no one knows where you're going, right? And so I think a lot of times our failures have very little to do with the programs we come up with. They have to do with the poor communication related to those programs. And so don't ever underestimate, don't ever strip away time that's necessary for communication, because like that seed that needs to be planted, we don't always get to dictate how quickly it grows. Okay, we get to dictate that we plant it, we get to nurture it. But sometimes we're ready to flip the switch on something, and what we realize is we should have given that a little bit more time. We should have communicated a little bit more. And I guarantee you, every one of you in here is probably, if you've been a part of this for any period of time, you know how true this is. And yet we continue to overlook it and downplay it. Communication is the key to just about everything that you're doing. You don't even need to listen to just about everything else I'm going to say, because that one right there is what gets most of us in this room, and that's what actually leads to the failures or the shortcomings that we experience time and time again. And we keep pointing to really good ideas that don't get off the ground, not because they weren't good ideas, but because we didn't communicate properly.
You also have to have great content. Creative for us, for me in the past at times, was a little bit of an afterthought. It was like, oh, it's great to have, some good-looking content or a great video, but great content in performance marketing has just as much impact as the amount of spend, as how hard you're pushing that. The algorithms are going to reward that great content and make your spend more efficient. So make sure that your creative director, your VP of creative, make sure they have a seat at the table too, and that they are daily talking to the performance marketing team, because it takes both of those levers to really make that effective. Also, from a content perspective, the content really needs to be focused on the consumer, not on the company. We're really great at talking about ourselves and all the wonderful things we've accomplished and who our executive team is. But this doesn't really matter a lot to the consumer. They want to know how we are solving their needs, how we can forward their needs, wants, and desires. So focus all of that content on how we can be the solution to them. And it needs to be emotional, not transactional. Again, we're great at selling, but we always, personally, we don't want to be sold to all of the time. So it has to be emotional. We want them to feel something, make them laugh, make them cry, educate, inform them, do something that shifts their emotional state. And think of it kind of as an emotional bank account, that for every time you educate or inspire or solve a need from them, you're making a deposit in that emotional bank account. So then when it does come time to kind of do the hard sell or to give them an offer, that you've built that trust and you're able to withdraw or make a withdrawal from that bank account. If you were only continually withdrawing and not depositing in that emotional bank account, that bank account's going to dry up really quickly. Another thing is that content should tell stories, which is one of our superpowers. One of the things we've been amazing at for 120 years. Tell our distributors stories, tell the customer stories, let them promote their content, boost their content to get out there and tell stories. And there was an interesting recent Stanford research project that said that stories are 22 times more likely to be remembered and to drive a sale than just facts alone. We're emotional creatures. Every purchase is an emotional decision that we then rationalize with facts.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a moment to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide more candid insights and interviews for direct selling corporate executives. Don't forget to register for our first ever DSU LATAM event, January 8th and 9th. Plus, save the date for our Spring DSU and Global Celebration, March 25th through 27th. Visit dsnevents.com for more details. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.